There we go. Welcome to the Bitcoin Core App Design Call, and it is number 92. So close to 100, just 8 more weeks, I guess. Thanks all for joining. As usual, we have our notes document. I did not prepare anything for this one, but we do have our GitHub Kanban board, and I think you guys have some things that you wanted to talk about. Should we create a quick hit list? Or should we do some more introductions first?
Yeah, let's introduce. So I'm Jakub, working at Albi full time. It's just a few weeks I'm going to work on this project as well from Bitcoin Design Foundation. UX designer, uh, background in psychology, so I feel more confident in UX research. I'm learning graphical stuff too. That's a comment for me. Psycho, okay.
Right. Okay, so I'm Michael. I'm a UX designer, and currently I got a grant from the Bitcoin Design Foundation to work part-time on the Bitcoin Core app until the end of the year, and that's it, basically.
But you really do it for Bitcoin, not for the money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bitcoin is money.
Exactly.
Everything for Ethereum.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, and I design and help project manage and just do whatever needs to be done for the project, I guess. And
I'm really just Carter. I'm really just a spectator here, hoping to learn as much as I can about what you guys have going on. I've seen online a couple of screenshots, and I've tinkered around with the first use website that you guys have put together, and it looks really, really awesome. As someone who's messed around with Bitcoin Core for a really long time, this update definitely seems necessary, and I see myself as just a design hobbyist, as I have a full-time job and family and all that sort of stuff. So I'm just dipping my toe in when I can.
Awesome. And what's your use case kind of for Bitcoin QT? And why would you use that one and not, I don't know, Blue Wallet? Or are you like a node runner? Do you like to tinker with that? Or your hobby miner or something else?
I specifically run Bitcoin Core through Start9. So I just have a remote server that I use for that. And I've even ran it on Windows in the past, but trying to take a more sovereign approach now.
Awesome. And Yashrash? Maybe he's not there. Hard to tell.
He's sleeping.
Oh, no. Okay, that's an introduction, I guess. Yeah. Okay, Yasha is quiet. Hey, Marnix. So how about we just get going with collecting some topics here?
So I have two.
You have two. Okay.
Update on the user testing. I don't think we will talk much about it because I just run one user test.
Okay.
Two scheduled for today. Yashrash had one scheduled, but two guys to contact, and Papersick has one guy he contacted. He wrote to one guy and then needs to schedule. So hopefully by the end of the week that will be done. And the second topic is, I wanted to take a look on the current send screens. Just take a look at them and just have some questions and maybe kind of reaffirm what do we want for MVP for this send screens.
Okay, cool. Any other topics?
We went through the receive flow last week. I didn't make any major updates there, but question is so there are two things that I think could be we could talk about specifically to get get a group feeling on it, and so that I can wrap this up and start maybe updating the design docs, and so that we can get a step further.
Yes, yeah, I do think there are some details there too that are not non-obvious design decisions. Okay. Anything else?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay.
Just update. I mean, I can quickly one sentence say about the testing that it went really smooth. There was really no bigger issues discovered. So minor stuff. Well, the user was quite experienced. We have, I think, at least two users who never used Core, so maybe they will discover more issues.
Okay. Okay, cool. We have the perfect design solution then. No, good result from first test, more to come. Okay. And that was for receive and activity, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then what do you want to do next? Receive screen, those design details, or send screen what goes in the MVP?
Maybe let's continue with receive. Yeah, just follow the order.
Michael, can you maybe share the
Yeah, on it.
the design file?
On it. Here we go. All right. So we talked about I think two things mainly, and one is what is kind of by default visible here on the receive screen when you get to it. There were a couple of variations where we could display it, and maybe I just hide the UI here. Display have some kind of ellipses or menu that I would, as a user, I could click on it and select which types of which fields that I should see here by default. Probably the app, in that case, the app would remember these settings so that I don't have to do that every time. And sorry, somebody's calling me. And yeah, we would have probably then to find a way to somehow to display what address type I'm currently using, or I'm not sure whether that's too relevant, but it is currently in the GUI, and it's probably a good thing to know. So this is one option. The other one would be to have some kind of an accordion. I think this was in the original, or one of the original designs I saw, is to just then expand and collapse, and you could here just change the address type and close it. And the third one was to just display all of them, because we have 4 so far, and not to not to hide one element behind the menu. And what I also had a question about the the difference between the address label or the message. What is actually important? Because if we say we hide certain things by default, I'm not sure how important the message is. We want to kind of push the labeling a bit, but we could also just have just the amount and the label as a default visible, make the UI even smaller, or yeah, less things to think about. So that's the first topic. What the I think the preference last time was kind of more to get to just display and everything until, because it's kind of an expanding thing for one element, might be a bit superfluous. But then the downside is that obviously the form gets longer and the detail screen gets longer. So that's kind of the first topic, and then the second topic, I think we'll get to it afterwards. So what's the? I mean, for me, I think it's both is fine. If we hide something, or if we use the menu, then maybe I would want to get a feeling whether this message field, where the idea is that I can attach a message or a memo that the sender then sees as well, whether that's would also be a candidate to hide by default or not, or what is your feelings?
Yeah, I would. So if we don't want users to look at the address type and make a conscious decision every time, we should just not show it. I would hide it, even if it's a drop down with one option. I think it's. I think the user messiness for the user here. I think that's, for me, that's higher priority, I would say. And the overall, so most Bitcoin apps you see today, you go to receive, you instantly see a QR code. That's it. You can add stuff, but generally that's not expected by people. Stuff ends up in your wallet and you just see an address and you have no idea what's what, or you kind of have to piece it together, right? It's all optional. And it's meant for like instant, quick, especially on mobile, it kind of makes sense. Now the old school, the UI that we are porting over here is a more explicit process where an address is an invoice ID. I create a request, I share that request gets fulfilled. Where when I click continue and I create this request, it's almost like a draft transaction that someone else has to complete for me. Right? You could almost put that in the transaction list that here's an activity. I created this request. I'm just waiting for someone to fulfill it, and it's meant not just like I loosey goosey share these things. It's like there's intent behind it, right? That's why we have this form interface, and then you click continue, and then you get that's where so the address label. So the message is it's the message for you that says, Michael, please pay me this much because I paid for your lunch yesterday, or for rent, or whatever, through this address. And then that shows up in the transaction details. Now the address label, that's probably more the thing that shows up. It's like, that's the thing where what is attached to, if I share this and two people send transactions to it, like what does it mean? How do we logically organize this? Is the address then labeled when I see a list of my addresses and it's a label right next to it, but we don't see the message? Or how does this surface throughout the rest of the application? Or can I? It's kind of weird. We have these general purpose fields, and they're just not a exact match of how these things. But we can come up with our own logic for how users should use this. So I think it's kind of helpful to also think about where addresses are surfaced later in the application and where the messages surface later in activity or other places.
I have a question here, because in SendFlow, when you add, you also can add address label, and then it's saved as a contact in this address book, right? Does it happen in receive as well? I don't know this. So if I add a label and then whatever address it is sent, is it automatically added to address book?
No, because they're your own addresses, right? You don't need to put your own address in the
Oh, but I mean the sender address. You label here the receiver address. Yeah, okay, I get it.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I don't feel like there's a huge benefit to the receive address label, but it is a standard at BIP 21. So, I mean, what's a good way for a user to think about this?
So it's, as far as I understand it, that this label is that so that I know where it came from, or from who this is, so that I don't mix, or that I kind of have an idea of who the sender was.
But the
And
message does the same job, right?
No, but the message is no. I think the message is the message the sender sees in the request, and the label is only private for the receiver. So the label is mostly for coin control, yeah. But Yasha probably has thoughts about it.
Yeah. So guys, this has been my question regarding these two fields from the get-go, because uh, when you add a address label, you add a message, the URI that is generated, it has both of those things. So it's not like the address label is private or anything.
You're right.
If you add it, the sender is going to see it. And like that
Mhm.
is my question since last few weeks. Like, do we want to change the behavior, or do we say that, like, because we are doing the MVP version right now, we just like retain the functionality as it is right now? I can see in the background Christoph has pulled up the BIP 21 page, and there it explains like what those two fields do. But the fact that both of them are shared in the URI, that that like means to me like they are kind of doing the same thing, at least even if they are like not doing the same thing. Jakub's question about like, can I add some private information to that just for use for myself? I think the answer to that is no right now.
So that depends on the default behavior. So if, let's say, we press continue and we share a link and we put this address label in that URL that's being shared, then it's going to be public. But if we don't do it, then it's going to stay within your application. So
Yeah,
we
maybe
could make
that's
a
a good
conscious
idea.
design decision that this address label will not be added to the shared URL.
I think it's a
Yeah,
good idea.
yeah. And so like that will be functionality that is not available in the application right now. That will be new functionality. The choice will be a new functionality.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
So otherwise, there's no difference. Maybe there's a difference. Oh, there may be a difference in clients who receive the URI, and they may display, for
yeah.
example, only message or both, or like so. There might be a difference there.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, like, another difference is that the address labels, they are like displayed on some other page in the existing application, right? Like on the transaction list, I think, or somewhere you can see the address labels, but you don't see the message. And so that is the difference right now.
Yeah, and then we have to think
Mhm.
about, if address label is for private use, then what are people likely to put there? Do they put in stuff like cold storage, or, well, it can't really be, right? I mean, it's is it, how do you think about it? Is it, I share? Do I put in the name of the person that I share it with? Do I tag it as some type of other purpose? Like, how do you want people to use it?
Yeah,
I
it's
think it's
so
mostly for like coin control, if like to know what I don't know, KYC coins, what's non KYC coins.
Yeah,
yeah, or
exactly. I mean, there
who the
might.
sender is. I mean, I've been using labels, yeah, and you can add labels to addresses after the fact, right? You don't need to do it in when you receive. But
Yeah.
I've been using it to kind of identify, just for, let's say, my internal accounting, which payments are, grant payments, for instance, from Spyro. So that's where how I kind of, it's kind of an organizational thing, um, that I actually don't want to be public.
If you want to be clever, we could do a thing here. If I just type in text, it's just text. Because if I type in a list of comma separated values, we turn them into tags, aggregate tags across different things. Just
Yeah.
like in
And you need
Figma,
to,
you can use slashes and it creates a folder structure from things.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like that.
then it's kind of hard to let the user discover that.
Yeah, that seems like a future feature.
Future project.
Yeah,
Not
definitely.
MVP.
Future, future Bitcoin,
But I think
Bitcoin
that can
Core
be
app.
the distinction. The distinction between these two can be, one is kind of internal, for me, kind of organizational things for me, which would be the label, and the message is kind of the instructions for the recipient, or the recipient message to the not to the recipient, to the sender.
Mhm.
So that's the distinction between the two.
Yeah, I was trying Bolt 12 on Phoenix earlier between iOS and and in there you can edit a description, edit a transaction, and you can add a description and a note. Now, what's the difference?
Mm.
That's
Yeah,
a
I always get
situation we
lost in
don't we
those.
don't we don't want to be in. Okay, but yeah, I
Yeah.
think if we can describe a good use case for this feature here, and then we have then we can make in intentional design decisions about it across the UI.
The use case is I want to describe that sender as a moron and I don't want him to see it.
So it's a personal note, rather public
Would
message, personal note. I don't know.
would that
Also, I
fit
think that
into the
the
accordion method?
difference
Go ahead.
the difference is also like you label the address, right? So if you reuse that address, then it has the same label.
Yeah.
And that also maybe that's actually maybe useful sometimes. Like for example, if you receive a grant, then you can share the same address for a grant. I don't know. Maybe there's some like requirement to share the same address. Then you can label this parent address, right?
People may have reasons for doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's
Mm.
valid. There's also this big change that message is per transaction, I guess. Not per
Mm-hmm.
address. Is it correct?
Yeah.
And label is per address.
But you can't really match that, right? If I create if if I share it with one of you with a message, the other one without a message, and without an amount, I get how can you match those? Yeah, you can't match it perfectly. You have to do the best you can. But yeah, maybe it is possible. Okay, but we have to think through that, right? And then
Mm.
when you go to
Hold
request
on.
history, how that shows up then in
Yeah, but isn't it? Yeah, so I think it should work. I don't know if it works like that. So if we reuse the same address for another transaction, another receive request, then and you use two different messages, then you should have the same label in the transaction history for that address, but different message for transaction. I think it should work like that, but I don't know if it works like that.
So it depends. Like if the UI doesn't necessarily allow you to share the same address with different messages and different amounts, right? We're making you create a new one for it, but
Yeah,
you
but if
can
you
you can still
paste,
edit whatever you want, and yeah.
if you paste the same address, wouldn't it be? Oh no, sorry, you don't paste it there. Maybe we should allow it for these reasons that someone wants to use it
Yeah,
without the prompt.
we have to be flexible. We can encourage or design for some specific use case that is, but then we have to allow people to just do other things with it. That's the trickiness, right? Okay, so
Cool.
we need to make sure we document this stuff in the design docs well.
Yeah, I made a note to self that so there's two things. One is the flesh out the distinction between what labels are, what the message is, what the purpose of these things is, and the second is about the second is the menu. If So we're gonna, I guess we're gonna just use the menu and hide the address type. And the question is whether we keep, once we make out the difference between what the label and the message is, then the question is whether we keep displaying both by default, or whether, let's say, a message or something is an optional, an option that is that is hidden by default.
Yeah, I mean, I would ideally we could maybe it's not address label the address, but there's something more helpful that then if people
Yeah,
do it, they're
absolutely.
better off in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, those two things. I think they also should, mention, or the users need to know what will be kind of public. If there is something that is just for me, like a personal note or some these kind of things, then users should know what the counterparty sees and what is just for me, because I just want to make a note that, okay, this is a request for, I don't know, for salary or whatever.
Okay. And let's
I
also design the request history. Can you pull that up, Michael? Because I think we exchanged some Figma comments there as well, and I think that will help us
Exactly.
finalize this stuff better. So
Exactly. So the origin was that we said when when I let's say I fill all of these things in, I get a payment request, and that lingers around. And once this thing is paid, or this address has received funds, then the question is what to display. So this was the original thing, was to say, okay, you have received the payment, don't reuse that address. And an alternative approach would be to just show the payment details or the transaction, just like in the activity, and maybe let the user expand the payment request so that they can keep the context of it. And if this address would receive multiple payments, then you just it would fill probably this list here. So that's what Christoph and I exchanged some comments on last week.
yeah. So does the
so
payment
here,
request turn into a transaction then? And basically the payment request becomes irrelevant, right? You don't have a separate list of payment requests and transactions, but they're the same in a way, or they merge.
yeah, but here's the question. Okay, yeah, so this is for payment request. Yes.
I mean, yeah, right. If you move your wallet, then you're not gonna, you don't gonna, and you use different one. You're not gonna have the payment requests anymore, right? That's not. You only have what's stored in the blockchain. But if both of these things, like the payment request you created and the transaction that was detected, exist in the same wallet, you match them, and you kind of combine them.
Yeah.
As for the what to hide in the with that dropdown, I think maybe we could hide the message as well. But by default, there will be only amount in the address label.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
You mean here? You mean this thing here?
Yeah, just because messages seems like much less important, and yeah, we just simplify the form more. But on the other hand, it is also not much.
No, I mean, if you want to hide stuff, then let's just directly show a QR code and an address, and make everything optional. I would not do a middle ground. I would either say, we want people to explicitly consider these things and make a decision, and then get this request, or you just make addresses what they're doing.
Then you have the problem. I don't know if it's a problem, but then you have the problem that if you show a QR and change, then the QR needs to change with every change, right? May not be a big issue, but you need to consider
Yeah,
with the
but I don't
information.
think that would be a problem, actually. Yeah, I think it will become naturally clear once we once I flesh out or think more about what the purpose of these two things is, and if they're distinct enough, then and easy enough to understand, then Yeah. But coming back to this to the discussion here about the activity and the request. I mean, if it's we could think about it as a form of. I mean, when I send an invoice to somebody, I usually keep the invoice for a while, or the payment request and the transaction that paid it, so that I think it's relatively standard practice. And this approach here would actually be something similar, where you have, you know, your invoice and you have the transaction, and so you keep them together
How do you get here?
at this point. You get here from here.
Okay.
So you have a request history, which is once you have created a bunch of requests, you open it from here.
Mm-hmm.
You get to your request history. You click on any of them, and this opens either this view if it hasn't received any money yet, or this if it has. So basically these two
I think
steps.
it's what's lacking here is some kind of. I would probably add here the label address as well. Just to kind of, because if the user sees only this, they don't. Okay, they come into a the transaction. Sorry, it's just looking at this. There's no information. Like, oh no, sorry, there is pizza payment. Okay, so it's fine. Yeah, so I didn't.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. This
But
doesn't feel quite right. It's almost like I click the thing and then I see the same thing again, with in just a
yeah,
slightly different container. So I think
right.
if,
And
let's
also,
say, you have a list of payment requests, some of them are not completed. You click them, you see the payment request again. Some of them are completed, you see the transaction, and then maybe at the bottom you can also expand the request that you sent. That's how I would just do it.
there will always be only one item here, right? In the activity. Maybe with replaced by fee, there might be a second one.
Ah, you're now you're throwing a whole other wrench into this thing.
yeah. That's a good question, because so if this address receives a second payment with any amount, I mean, this address can be sent to without, this specific request. So you could have potentially 2, 3, 10 payments to this address, right?
Yeah, but that's the question. Is it payment request and displays all activity to that address? I don't think it should work like this. It should. It's hard. Ideally, I don't know, if you create this, if you go this route that you can reuse the address and you somehow allow for it, and then you create a second payment request. Ideally, that activity will be separate. But I don't know
Okay,
if it's possible.
this is where specs are helpful. So we have scenarios, we have different states. There's a payment request. It just is what it is. Then you have maybe two payment requests to the same address. Fine. How do we show that? Then you have a payment request that is completed and it matches exactly one specific transaction. Then you have a payment request that is completed and maybe there are two or three transactions. Let's list out all of these different states, and then we can logically work through them. Yeah, this request form seems so simple, but then you end up with all of
No,
this stuff.
it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah, but can we write this down, because I think it will help us. Because now I feel like we're bouncing back and forth between a bunch of things.
I made notes. I can just.
Yeah.
I don't know where to put them. The best. Or in the docs. In the notes.
Carter, how does all that sound?
Yeah, so the initial idea was kind of like this. You see the original request and you
Yeah.
see whether you've received a uh, a payment, right? And the feedback was that yeah, this might not be relevant anymore at all. So
But
this is kind of
but the Christoph argument that with the second design you kind of replicate the same view, you just enter from the transaction list. I think it makes sense. Okay, if you want to go deeper and see, then I would show this. I think because you have all from the second design, you have all the same information in the previous one, so it's kind of redundant in the second design.
that's a good that's a point.
I'll probably keep this one based on that. And just yeah, this warning is sufficient to like warn the user that it's not the best practice.
Yeah, but I don't know if we need to show this all the time.
Yeah,
You know, seems like overkill. Maybe there's something where you don't even have a share button here anymore for this address,
yeah,
right? So maybe we can find a place where the user somehow we feel like they're getting on the wrong track, and then we show it rather than any payment request that was completed.
So if well, that's if right. If we allow the user to reuse to create a second payment request of the same address, then that's a good place to have this warning. Are you or like
yeah.
this will lessen your privacy?
Yeah, if we've detected it, then definitely a good time to show it.
Hey guys, I think one kind of issue slash question I have regarding the payment request is that it is like the way you get to that page is like you have to go to receive, and then at the bottom there is a way to add to that. Like somehow it feels like a more natural uh, place for that might be like somewhere around the activities screen, right? like like having to go to the receive section and then to go to the payment requests. I mean, what do you guys think about that?
That's totally an option. Can you, Michael? Can you go scroll over to the activity? So if we it's called activity, it's not called transactions, right? For good reasons. So it could stay in there whenever you created a request, and then if that request is completed, it turns into a transaction, and you leave it at that. Now people can obviously create a huge mess for themselves, and maybe some people don't want to see it, and that could just be a simple toggle that says view all activity or only view transactions, and maybe it's just little button in the next to the other two icons there. So that could be something to consider. I don't know if that's what maybe something just to mock up and feel it out. I don't think we have all the design elements, right?
Yeah. But still, I think I still have the feeling that it would, if I'm here already, to quickly and easily access the kind of my previous invoices or request history, I still think it can make sense.
Yeah.
I kind of like Rashford's idea because if you created a request, it's like created, uh, and like receive screen kind of implicates a new action from you. Like I want to receive new. So if I created something, and I'm also kind of checking, waiting or checking if the transaction already, if the sender sent the transaction or whatever, then I'll probably naturally more look for it in the activity. So I kind of like this idea to move it to activity somehow.
Yeah. But I mean, I think we can have both, no, as well. I mean, as an entry point.
Let's feel it out. This is we're still a little bit back to discovery here with some things. Maybe we can tag team on some of these, because I think it's sometimes helpful. So right now we're in a position where Michael mocks everything up, but it can also be helpful if the two or three or four of us take, like, because we have all the elements, right? It's just arranging them differently. That way, if we all mock up our perspectives and feel it out a bit, it gives us a better sensitivity for how we think it should work, rather than just logically here. Maybe would that be helpful?
Yeah, definitely. I want to try. I want to try to move that to activity and see how we can place it further. We have 15 minutes. Maybe we can. I don't know.
Yeah, I also wanted to ask Carter real quick. So, what is all that sound?
Yeah, I've been following you guys. I think it's all great input. I know there was just a lot of issue with address label versus message, and I think it's, if we're gonna hide things, I definitely think that address label and in a sense the transaction label or coin control is more of a power user feature, then that could be put into the menu, the accordion menu that shows address type as well as label. I don't label my transactions all the time, so maybe that's not something that is pertinent at the top. But messages, if you're going to be sending that out, um, maybe that's a little bit more pertinent. That was just my 2 cents regarding that one. I know we covered so much, but if we're trying to simplify that screen, I think maybe those two could be in the accordion menu.
Okay. Yeah, it's no, that's good. That's good input. My assumption is, like, this wallet's been around for like 10 years or whatever. There will be people with ingrained habits, and because it's been such an open way, like undefined way of input field, right? Some people will come up with something, will try to improve it, and it's not going to work out for them. But
Yeah.
luckily, we have like Jakob here and Michael doing user testing, and Mo as well. We'll come up with some variations, and then we'll test. And through that process, we'll end up with something, even if we don't like it. As long as people like it, we're good.
Yeah, Strash and Paperstick also are now doing users.
You're also in there. Awesome. I guess I'm the only one who's just doesn't care about users. Exactly. Okay, Jakob, you wanted to talk about send, right?
Can I quickly make one point about the about messages and that stuff? Like, I feel like the issue I run into sometimes is that while I'm trying to receive, I don't add any data to it, right? I don't add any labels or anything like that. And then after a few weeks, I like have to remember, oh, like how, like who did I receive this from, or and then I feel like I should have done that, right? I should have labeled it, and like if you keep the labels field, maybe it will encourage more like people to do it in advance, which is so much easier than like trying to do it after the fact.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
I mean, that's kind of a classic thing, right? In UX, sometimes there's this tendency, like, let's remove, let's get stripped of everything, because we're so afraid of friction. But then sometimes it's good to put things in people's way, because it is better for them, even if it slows them down a bit, and they will indirectly appreciate it. It looks like Jakob has the new UI, Figma UI here.
It's not new. It's the one that was, I don't know if designed by you mostly or.
Oh no, I'm talking about the Figma itself.
Yeah. I had it from the first day. Maybe because I use beta, Figma Beta. Maybe that's why. I don't know. But
I have it. I
I
have
like
it as well for my other job. So it's I use both at the moment. It's sometimes it then gets tricky when you switch projects.
Yeah, so we have this flow that was designed, I don't know, probably a year ago. And we have here single sync send, external signer, multisig, and view only. And I guess we focus for MVP for single sig only, right?
Yep, it's the minimum amount you need to do to send a transaction.
Yeah. So yeah, I have them here. So this is a kind of basic screen with with the drop down here to add recipients, which then changes to this kind of flow. Import transaction file, which we don't have designs for this. Open payment request link, also we don't have one. And enable coin selection, and we have these two designs, which I like this visual more, but I kind of understand it less. So maybe it can be.
Yeah. Those a lot of these screens are fairly quick
Yeah,
mock-ups that weren't really thought through.
yeah. So for designing this, I would need
It's
to learn a bit more and try it out myself. I never did conscious coin control.
Yeah, for that one we looked at. Everyone likes the sparrow visualization, and the idea was, well, maybe we could do something similar.
Yeah, it's a good benchmark for sure. And I had some questions. Okay, so yeah, I added here like it's a copy icon, but I think also it's in a current core paste from the clipboard. My question is, for example, in the dropdown to change the fees, there is no custom fee
Yeah.
at all. And so, do we want it, or do we don't want it at all?
Yeah, you should.
Yes.
Okay, so that's need to be designed. Uh,
Something else I don't see here is the send max thing.
yeah, some max is missing. Uh, okay, and so there's this address label here, and then in the current core, as I understand, if you add address label, it's saved to your this address book, which you can access from here. So then you can reuse the same address to send. I don't know if there's a way to manually add uh, an address that you don't send without sending actually Bitcoin first time. If you can manually add an address contact. I don't know. I don't know if it's possible in Core now, and I don't. Yeah, if it's possible, then we also need to take that into consideration when
Yeah.
designing.
Yeah, that's a, yeah. The contact screen should probably be part of this.
Yeah,
Definitely.
definitely.
One thing that would be cool here also is automatic clipboard detection, and so it fills in because right now you have to go to open clipboard link, that option, but
Somewhere here there is some
yeah.
design for this, but oh yeah, I think here.
Yeah, I've totally redesigned that. It's all the more directional stuff, everything.
Okay, and uh, there's also this state where the blockchain is not synced. The copy here probably can be better. The loading, I don't know, it's very generic.
Yeah,
But,
no, we should pick up. So if it's IBD and it's going to take another 10 hours, that's different than if it needs to catch up with 2 blocks.
mhm.
So maybe we can distinguish there somehow as well, and use the same language that we use elsewhere.
Yeah.
And could we have a send once complete queue option? If you're like if you know it's gonna work, you're pretty confident, right? And it's just gonna It's just going to schedule it, and
Mm.
once loading's done, it's just going to try to send it off.
Say again the first part.
So the UI kind of you can still enter the information and press send. Maybe it says send once done loading or whatever, right? And the UI just kind of holds the transaction for you. It doesn't send it to the mempool right away; it just holds it for you until its own loading, IPD, whatever process is complete, and then sends it off. So you don't have to sit there and wait, but it waits for you and then sends it,
Yeah, so because right
assuming
now,
it's valid.
yeah, the assumption here is disabled, I guess, because that was in the title. So we
Yeah.
could change it to like, blockchain is syncing whatever the transaction will be sent after it's synced, something
Yeah.
like this.
That could just be problematic due to fee estimate.
That's true. That's true.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean that's the
But
thing,
you
right?
still,
If it's
but you still would want to. Sorry.
Go ahead.
So you would probably still, as a user, I probably still would want to kind of fill in the form. Maybe not send it, but save it somewhere so that once the download is done, even if I have to go and click a button because the fees might have changed, and I think that's a good point. Then even if it's not an auto send, I think it would be cool to just be able to kind of enter or create the transaction and then broadcast it later and select the fee later.
Yeah, it depends. If the later is expected to be 4 minutes, it's different than if it's 10 hours.
Yeah,
Right?
that's true.
Okay, Jakob, you have to get going. I saw we saw
But
LB
basically,
call notification.
so I just wanted to show what's there
Yeah.
and kind of decide on the scope. So for the MVP. So this so what needs to be added is custom fee, contact, the whole interactions with address book, multiple recipients as well, I guess.
Yeah, so I wanted to let me pull this up. I wanted to share something here. So this is a design from 3 years ago for the Monero GUI that I worked on. And here, I think there were two modes basically. So you can get into this table mode, and that is something that we heard from HRF too when they pay people, 50 people at the same time for payroll, that you have more of a power user view. So maybe you can drag in a comma separated value file or an Excel file or a JSON file or whatever, or some more data, right? More payment information, and it just spits it out in this list for you, and you can just send it all at once, batch, maybe something like that. So that would be an alternative rather than this one-off where you have to different label for every transaction.
Yeah, but I remember I was even also iterating on this like 2 years ago or something. But yeah, we have this problem then, with the labels, right? And
Yeah.
also, I guess technically separate fee estimation for the transaction. So it's tricky how to include.
I mean,
all.
if you're batching, right, you just pick some inputs and then it's still one. It all goes into the same block in one transaction, potentially.
But this view is definitely easier um, for like making sure, like comparing everything together, making sure you didn't do mistake with the address. So it's helpful in that way.
But you talked specifically about MVP. How about we just don't worry about that and we just do very simple MVP can be just no batching, one transaction. That's it, and we figure out the rest as we go.
Yeah, so that's the question. So we take multiple recipients out for MVP.
Yeah, I would take it out.
Yeah.
There's already so much stuff there to do, and all these details, getting those right, those different states, making sure it's all coherent. Yeah, better to have fewer stuff so well executed that people love it and want to see more, rather than pack in too much and do it half baked.
Okay, and then coin selection.
I mean, it's for the devs to kind of make a call on what their timeline looks like. From the design side, I think we should really try to make this a really minimal bundle, and then make it easy if like someone really wants to develop coin selection design. So here, go for it, but it's not, it's not required.
Next spiral grant.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Because outside
so
this, yeah, there's because if we don't include coin selection, then there's really kind of minor stuff to add or improve. Coin selection will be both coin selection and multiple recipients are kind of big and harder, but
Yeah. I mean, the great thing is if we can design the first MVP looking in a way that it's forward looking and allows us to slot
yeah.
these other things in, and we don't have to redo half the UI.
But one question with the coin selection. So right now there's this drop down where you can select it, but then it appears on the second step, right? Probably.
I think you pull it up here as an overlay or as a second screen, I think. Oh, you're talking about in the Qt app right now?
No, I guess of the desire of the desired. If it's on the second screen, then it's easier for the future. It's more future proof, I guess.
I thought of it as an overlay, but just slides up, you deal with things, slides back down.
Yeah.
But if you have good reasons to design it another way, then go for it. My computer will die here very soon.
Yeah, but that's it. That's all my questions. But
it's awesome. We're really digging into those details. It's great.
And here's also an overlap with the address and the label things. So I think this kind of getting this more organized will help.
Yeah. Awesome.
Cool.
Then
Let's
I'm going
get
to stop
work.
the recording.
Yeah. Jakub, do you like have a call right